Assalamu alaikum, Halima here, your Quran lifestyle coach. Okay, today I want to talk about how we can develop more patience when we're pursuing our dreams and our goals. Because a lot of us have these amazing goals that we work really hard on. Whether it's something that you work on full time or something that you do as a side hustle while you fulfill all your duties, it can be equally frustrating when we are putting in all the effort, when we're, giving that blood, sweat, and tears, but we're not really feeling like we're experiencing the breakthroughs that we want, or we're not really seeing the progress that we expected to see. And that can take a big toll on our emotional and our mental and physical well-being as well. So it's really important to ask the question, what can we do about it? Because although I'm sure, most of us are mature enough to understand that success just doesn't happen overnight, right? That it requires us to be patient, to have discipline. The reality is that living these things is just simply quite hard, right? And I think on top of that, what makes it even more difficult actually is the fact that these prerequisites to success, like having patience, for example, is something that is still quite abstract, right? It's something that we might have various different definitions of. We might have different ideas on how to develop it and practice it. So today, inshallah, in this video, what I want to share with you is 4 Quranic ideas on how we can develop our levels of patience so that inshallah we can really enjoy our journeys and we can feel like we're making progress in our lives. I'm sure you've heard the saying that, we need to be careful of our thoughts because our thoughts become our words become our actions become our habits, and our habits become our character and our destiny. This is something that is very well known in the world of personal development. But what essentially is trying to teach us is that everything starts up here. Everything starts with our the way that we think and our mental perception. And this is not something, by the way, that is simply to do with personal development, and it's foreign to our religion either. Because even if you look in a hadith Qudsi where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of himself, he starts with the hadith Qudsi with, I am as my servant thinks I am. So subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also teaching us here that even in the most integral and important of relationships and purposes, that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the way that we think and the way that we perceive things plays a really big role. So what you're going to see inshallah in this video is that the first 3 points that I'm going to cover are to do with our mindset. So things that we need to shift in our way of thinking in order to help us to develop the levels of patience that we need when pursuing our goal, inshallah. And then the last point will be a practical tip. Okay, so the first Quranic idea I have for you on how you can develop more patience when you're pursuing your goals, inshallah, is to start focusing more on the journey than just fixating all the time about the goal itself, the end goal. So instead of just focusing on the goal all the time and asking yourself questions like, when am I going to achieve it? Why is it not happening in the way that I expected it to? We need to start shifting to the now in terms of, what actions can I take right now that can help me move forward towards my goal? What resources did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me that I can use? What time can I carve out to take me closer to those goals? And I think an amazing Quranic example that, really showcases for us this difference in focus between our end goal and, focusing more on our journey itself can be seen through the example of Musa alayhi salam and Bani Israel. So we're told that when they fled Egypt, they found themselves in a very difficult situation. They found themselves standing before the Red Sea with a mountain to their side and the oncoming army of Fir'aun. And we're told that some people from Bani Israel, they naturally started to panic. They started to blame Musa alayhi salam for what they thought was going to be their end, which is their death. Right? So they were focused previously on the end goal was freedom, and now the end goal to them is death. And if you look on the other hand at Musa alayhi salam and what he was focusing on, we're told that he was actually going through the crowds of Bani Israel with Harun and Yusha bin Nun looking for a practical solution. And in response to what was said to him by Bani Israel, we're told in the Quran that he said, قَالَ كَلَّا إِنَّ مَعَيَ رَبِّي سَيَهْدِي. He said, no, indeed, verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with me and he will guide me. So we see that Musa alayhi salam, he was somebody who understood that all results are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is within our capacity, where we come into play, is in demonstrating our ikhlas, in demonstrating our ihsan, so our sincerity and our efforts to deem ourselves worthy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's assistance. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is essentially expecting from us. Now, by the way, when you see the words that Musa alayhi salam said to Bani Israel, his response, it shows the amazing levels of tawakkul that he had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regards to the end goal, right? And I'm sure that neither Musa nor Bani Israel could have imagined the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to deliver them. I'm sure neither of them could have expected that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was actually going to open the sea for them to walk through, and that he would actually permanently deal with Fir'aun by drowning him and his army in that sea. And so what we're learning here, by the way, which is an amazing lesson as well, is that as amazing as our goals might be, they don't necessarily always need to manifest in the way that we want or the way that we expect them to be in order for them to be as amazing and as successful as we, essentially expect. And I think that one of the most beautiful examples of this idea that things don't necessarily need to manifest in the way that we want is in the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? So we see that Ibrahim alayhi salam, his goal was to call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he spent many, many years doing so. He traveled so much. He was tested with test upon test. He sacrificed so much on that journey. But let me ask you, what was the results of that goal? Did you know that Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he died, when he passed away, he only had a small handful of followers, subhanAllah. Imagine, out of all the places that he visited and the people that he spoke to, he had a handful of followers. But then let me ask you this. What was the results of his goal, of all the ikhlas and all the ihsan that he exerted when he was focusing on his journey? What was the end results that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivered? He is somebody who is one of the most revered and respected figures in history, right? Amongst various different world religions. He's someone who Muslims, millions of Muslims, every single day, at least 5 times a day in salah, they make dua for him when they're doing the tashahhud, subhanAllah. This is a man who, thousands and thousands of people, they name their children after him out of love and respect for him. This was a man who understood the importance of, appreciating and valuing that journey, putting in the ikhlas, putting in the ihsan, and trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having tawakkul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to deliver the results. And this naturally helped him to become more patient on that journey. So what you realize, by the way, is that when you start valuing your journey a lot more, then you also start to honor and to value the struggles that you face on that journey as well, not just have patience with them, because you'll start seeing those obstacles as milestones instead. You'll start seeing them as milestones for your growth and development, for you to become a better person, or to become more skilled, or to become more experienced, more grateful, etc. So essentially it's going to help you, inshallah, to become, to enjoy that journey more and to make that journey easier for you, and less prone to complaining and to giving up as well. Okay, the second Quranic idea I have for you to help you develop your patience when you're, chasing your dreams and goals is to focus on including passions and your personal interests into the process of achieving those goals. So I'm sure you've heard of the saying, time flies when you're having fun, right? And that's because when you're engaged in activities that ignite your passions and your interests, time becomes irrelevant, isn't it? And, leading on from point one, when people are just completely fixated on their goal as opposed to their journey, and, they just want to achieve it by any means necessary, they can actually kill themselves in that process if they haven't given up already. And so that, even when they do achieve those goals, they feel empty inside. We have to realize that our journeys can become part of our dreams. We can experience that happiness and fulfillment that we're seeking when we start to, consciously integrate dream activities into that process of achieving those goals. So this is going to require us, it's going to challenge us to be creative, but it's something that is possible and something that's going to really make a big impact on our levels of patience when pursuing our goals. So for example, if somebody wants to become a chef, they don't have to just simply work a dead-end job for 4 or 5 years, save the money in order to go to culinary school and start, living their passion of cooking. I mean, that might be the process of how they attain money and, how they go to that school. but nothing's stopping them from choosing to cook for themselves in a really fun and creative way every day, or to set a time, once a week where they invite friends and family around and they can again cook for them in a very fun and artistic way. So similarly, we need to start thinking about what our passions are and how we can start integrating these kind of activities into our daily journey towards that goal. And I think, again, one of the most beautiful examples of this is Ibrahim alayhi salam. He was someone who didn't wait for millions of followers in order to start being a leader. We know that, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was calling people for Hajj in the Meccan desert when there was no one there to adhere to his call. He was doing what leaders do. He was observing and he was fulfilling the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of a sincere and love and passion for obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And look at the results, subhanallah. How many millions of Muslims every year respond to his call for Hajj? The third Quranic idea I have for you for developing and increasing your levels of patience when pursuing your goal is to start focusing and thinking about your learning and the acquisition of your skills. So, a lot of people, they end up giving up or abandoning their dreams because they never feel qualified enough. So I'm sure you've heard them say, or maybe you yourself have told yourself, they question, am I good enough? Am I ready for this? Am I worthy, etc.? And those thoughts come from not having in place a plan for your learning and your skills. So for example, some people, if they want to be a writer, for example, they might think that in order to be a writer, I need to be good at writing, and that's all. When that's wrong, because we know that, although you might be able to write your book, in order to really share it with the world, which is the purpose of, writing in the first place, to share your message, you might find that it actually requires you to learn the skill of public speaking to promote it. You might need to learn a little bit of online marketing or learning about brands, etc. So, people, because they don't have that learning in place, that expectation, when those prerequisites come for their success, for their goal to be fulfilled, they become stuck, they become overwhelmed, they start questioning whether this really is the path for them. Why is it so difficult? So this is something where I would suggest that you start thinking of the key skills, maybe 5 key skills that is going to help you, inshallah, to attain your dream goals, inshallah. And then start every day actually scheduling time, blocking time to actually start learning and developing those skills, so you feel ready when those milestones come. Because learning, it gives your mind this sense of progress and growth that it needs. It gives this peace of mind, so your mind knows what to expect and can prepare itself. And something really integral I want you to remember with regards to this point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He never calls the qualified, He qualifies those that He calls. Let me repeat that for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He never calls the qualified, He qualifies those He calls. Even if we look into the Quran at the prophets, we look at Musa alayhi salam, they didn't necessarily feel ready for when they were given prophethood. So you see Musa alayhi salam in the Quran, he starts expressing his fear about approaching Fir'aun. He starts to question how he can speak when he's got this speech impediment. You see Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was when the Quran was first revealed to him, he's bewildered, he's not sure whether he's lost his mind or not. So just remember that you might not feel ready for whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He calls for you and He calls you to in this dunya, but if you put in the effort to start learning from now and developing yourself, then inshallah things will become possible for you, and you will become a lot more patient in pursuing and to going through that journey. Okay, the fourth idea I have for you to be able to develop your levels of patience, inshallah, to achieve your goals, it relates to your company. So your support network, your social circle, your tribe and community. This is something that is really important, because a lot of people, they give up on their dreams when they feel like they're doing it by themselves. They don't have the important connections with people who are on the same journey as them, or people who achieved the same things that they want to achieve. And it's really important to human beings to be able to be vulnerable with certain individuals about our fears and our struggles and our failures, so that those people can give us encouragement, and so those people can give us some suggestions and techniques, for example, from their experience. And equally for them to be able to share in our celebrations and whenever we've achieved our milestones as well, because they get it. And I think if you look in those 2 examples I gave you in the previous point, you look at Musa alayhi salam and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we see that this is something that that was one of the first things that they did, and it was something that tremendously helped them as well. So for example, you look at Musa alayhi salam, when he was given prophethood, one of the first things that he did was actually ask for assistance of his brother, right? Harun, who became a prophet as well. And if you look at Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you find that, when he received revelation, he ran immediately to his wife Khadijah for comfort. And then she also took him to her cousin Waraqa in order to, get the support that he needed and the understanding as well. And when I reflect on my own life, I realize, subhanAllah, there are, key figures that have been really important to my growth and who I've become and who, the kind of lifestyle that I'm now living. And I once heard something really, really, thought-provoking that I want to share with you about this. I heard a speaker once say that you should already know in your mind who you would love to have on your mobile on speed dial, as part of your community. And this is something that when I heard that, I took it literally, and I actually took out my phone and started to write the names of people that I would love to build connections with and to be my support group. And it's something, subhanAllah, is so true when they say where focus goes, energy flows, because already I have some of those contacts and established connections with some of those people. And inshallah, I hope to continue to build those that I don't have contact with currently. Now, if you're the type of person that's thinking, well, I'm not lucky enough to have such connections or such friends, Halima, well, the reality is that hardly ever do we build these kind of connections with people by chance. We just bump into such people. We have to consciously do research. We have to consciously make an effort to reach out to those people as well. And if you're somebody who's not sure, what kind of people you should be connecting with or would be good for you and your family, then I would say at least start thinking about, your passions and interests, and maybe go and volunteer for an organization that's in line with your interests and your passions, things that you care about, where you'll be able to meet fellow volunteers, because people who, inshallah, are kind enough to donate and sacrifice their time and effort to help something that is similar to you is a good place to start, inshallah, looking for those people for your community. And never underestimate the power of dua. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you people, and connections that are going to help you in your deen and your dunya, inshallah. And saying that, if you would love to be part of an extraordinary group of Muslims who are consistently working on bettering themselves and living their best life through the transformation of their Quran relationship, then why not join the Quran Rehab community, inshallah? So you can subscribe to this channel, you can follow us on social media, and to find out how you can get involved, go to quranrehab.com, inshallah, to find out more. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then please do give it a thumbs up. And if you know anyone who you think is maybe feeling a bit down or disheartened on their journey, they need a bit of encouragement with regards to how they can practically develop their patience, then why not share this video with them? Okay, I hope this video served you well, inshallah. Until next time, take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.